there, welcome to Wool Meets World. I am Marcy. If there's one thing that I absolutely love, it is a matching or coordinating set. So I'm so excited to finally be starting a project that has lived like rent-free in my head for almost a year now, and that is a coordinating vinyl tote to go along with my Keep Palm and Beach Mat On pool chair cover. I'll put a picture of the project right there. It is one of my most favorite projects that I've ever done. I use it every day in the summertime. You can use it as a mat at the beach, or in my case, I use it to cover my pool chair. So I'm so excited to finally have a coordinating bag to go with it. For more details on this pattern, check the description box below. I will have all the details there, as well as a link to my Ravelry project page. For this project, I am using some jelly vinyl. I have two separate rolls here. I am using this printed one that I bought from Zipper Valley last year for the main part of the bag. It is made from high quality PVC. It's soft, pliable, it's semi-translucent, and has a matte finish. This particular roll measures 12 by 52 inches, and because I didn't know that I was going to make such a large tote bag when I bought this last year, I had to buy a little coordinating jelly vinyl from Amazon, and this smaller roll measures 11 inches by 52. I also have some coordinating quilting cotton left over from a different project that I'm going to use. I'm going to use the pink to make an inner privacy pocket, and the blue is going to be turned into bias binding to cover my seams. For the handles, I'm using 1.5-inch nylon webbing that I bought from Idle Blooms, as well as zipper tape and a zipper pull from Zipper Valley for the inner pocket, and a D-ring and swivel hook that will allow me to clip my notions pouch inside the larger tote. There is no specific pattern for this. I am just using some inspiration photos that I collected from Pinterest, as well as the measurements from my existing tote bag that I'm taking with me to the pool to design my own pattern. Because I'm working with vinyl, there are a few special tools that I will need. I am using Microtech needles to help prevent skipped stitches, and I am using heavy duty thread. If I was just making a pouch, I would use all-purpose polyester, but because I'm making a tote bag, I need to help it withstand some wear and tear, so I'm using heavy duty. And to prevent sticking, I will be using my walking foot, as well as clips in place of pins. So I am ready to cut. I just finished marking my measurements with a nice bright post-it so that I know where on this design page to look for my actual numbers. It's nice and bright, telling me exactly where to look, and we're ready to cut. I'm so nervous. I did it. I've never worked with vinyl, so I did extensive reading before starting this project, and I found some really great tips. Like never iron vinyl, use a longer stitch length, 3mm should do it, and you probably need to adjust the thread tension on your machine. Of course, always do a test first before you start your larger project, so to that end, I'm going to make my little notions pouch first to see how my machine handles this vinyl. My little test case slash clip-in notions pouch. It came out really cute. I'm so happy with the way it turned out. And I learned so much about sewing with jelly vinyl just by doing this little one before I start the big tote. So now that it's done, I've gotten all the tips and tricks, put them into practice, and now I know what I need to do. So let's start with cutting the inner pocket. My pocket is going to be online just because I'm lazy, don't feel like making a lined pocket. It's plain fabric, same on either side, so whatever. Some of my seams are going to be enclosed, but others are not, so I'm just going to take the extra step of finishing off the edges of my fabric just to make sure and give it a little extra stability so that nothing unravels when it's getting its daily wear and tear. Sew my bag together. Let's go through the pieces that I have and the next steps. I have two side pieces of the main fabric, the polka dot that I got from Zipper Valley, and I have two panels for the front and back. And what I've done is I've basted in on one of the panels my inner privacy pocket that I made earlier, and I've also basted in my clip that's going to hold my notions pouch. And then on the other side, I had some leftover of my contrast roll, so what I did was I created a little pocket. I've added binding to the top, and I've basted it on the sides, so that is just going to be a nice big inner pocket that I put my iPad in or whatever needs to be separated out. So I'm going to take the two front panel pieces and I am going to sew them to the side pieces, basically making a big box. Now I am going to have my seams be on the outside of the bag, and then I'm going to hide them with the blue binding. So I am going to sew these two, instead of sewing them right sides together like you typically would, I am going to sew them wrong sides together so that my seams are on the outside, and then I can cover them with binding later. Then after I finish that, after I make a big box with the bag, I am gonna then sew the bottoms on. So if you recall, I said I didn't realize that I was gonna make such a big bag with the polka dot fabric that I got from Zipper Valley, so I had to get this additional roll, and because this is gonna be on the bottom, you're really not gonna see that this is a different type of fabric. But if you are making this for yourself and you know what kind of measurements you want already before you buy the fabric, feel free to make all the pieces matching. This fabric that I got from Amazon, this jelly vinyl, is a little bit thinner than the one that I got from Zipper Valley. So I basically just cut out two bottom panels, and I am gonna sew them together into the bottom of the bag as if they're one, just to get this a little bit thicker to match the thickness of the original fabric. So I found during the making of my little notions pouch that I didn't love using my walking foot for this project, so instead I'm going to try a different method to get the presser foot to not stick to the vinyl. I am going to use tissue paper, and I'm going to sandwich that right in between my presser foot. I'm using my 1/4 inch foot, so I'm going to sandwich that right between my presser foot and my fabric so that the fabric can just glide right through the machine. Sewn my sides together, and I have my seams on the outside, which are going to get covered with binding. I have to now sew in the bottom piece here. Close up the bag, and I've got my bottom pieces here that I'm going to sew together to make it extra thick. And I forget where I've seen this tip on YouTube before. I'm so sorry that I don't have the affiliation for it, but it's basically to just cut a little notch on all 4 corners of your bottom piece, and that way you can fit it into the bottom and the little bulkiness at the corner seams doesn't get in the way. So I am going to sew this in, and then all I'll have left is the binding and the handles.
At 29 and I find myself wondering what did happen to the last 10? I ran away with my life, fast forward, never turn back again. It's kind of funny that the more we pass time, the more we need to set the rewind. And 19 was the year I had to leave, but now I'm seeing all the signs. Is this really happening? I can't believe it's true. I'm just as surprised as you. This really happening? I can't be too sure, but one day I'll be yours again. Life lessons come 1 in a dozen, the other 11 get something from nothing. I sit here looking for an answer. Maybe the biggest question was in the last chapter. You gave me the soul I have today. Without you I never could have moved away. But now I see what you teach. I do believe I always should have stayed. Yeah. Is this really happening? I can't believe it's true. I'm just as surprised as you. Is this really happening? I can't be too sure, but one day I'll be yours again. One day I'll be yours. One day I'll be yours. Life lessons come 1 in a dozen. The other 11 give something from nothing. Life lessons come 1 in a dozen. The other 11 give something from nothing. Life lessons come 1 in a dozen. The other 11 give something from nothing. Life changes just open the door. One thing's certain, I'll always be yours. Is this really happening? I can't believe it's true. I'm just as surprised as you. Is this really happening? I can't be too sure, but one day I'll be
how it turned out. I was a little bit worried that the bag would not hold its shape because jelly vinyl is so pliable, but it actually does pretty good. When the bag is empty, it definitely collapses in on itself pretty quickly, but when the bag has stuff in it, it stays up nicely. There's just a little bit of flopping at the top edges here, which is totally fine for me. There are, however, a couple of things that I would change if I were to make this bag again. The first one being how I did the binding here. What I would do next time is clip off the corner seams on the top and the bottom, just a 1/4 inch from the top and bottom to make a little bit less bulk at the corners. It was much more difficult binding around this way on the top and bottom than it was with, let's say, quilting cotton because the jelly vinyl is so much thicker. So there's really a lot of bulk here. I would clip those off here and here before I did any of my binding to get rid of some of the bulk. And then of course on the bottom, I would get enough fabric to make everything match. But in the construction of it, I would actually change it up a little bit. This time around, I went around in a rectangle. Next time, I think it would be a little bit easier to sew the long edges first and then sew up the short edges. And the last thing I would change is just to make the little notions pouch maybe a 1/4 inch bigger on all around when cutting it. It's a little bit just too small to fit my smallest snips, so I'm gonna have to buy some even tinier snips for next summer to carry around in this little pouch. But otherwise, I'm really happy with it. I had so much fun making this bag and this video. Check the description box below. I have all the tools, materials, as well as any tips and tutorials that I use to make the overall bag, and I have a little simple recipe on how to recreate this if you're interested. Shout out in the comments below if you made this or if you're inspired to crochet the Keep Palm mat. I'd love to hear everything that you have to say about this. And now it's time for me to pack up and head to the pool.